welcome you to Foxborough, Massachusetts, where a record crowd of almost 60,000 is expected at Gillette Stadium, the site for MLS Cup 2002, the Revolution taking on the Galaxy.
That anticipation of being able to watch your hometown team playing a championship game on their home field with 60,000 fans in attendance was incredible.
Felt like it was building to a crescendo, and we knew it was a big occasion, and because it was a predetermined venue, there was a whole schedule of events with parties thrown by MLS and media days and everything, so it felt like a mini Super Bowl, and there was a real excitement around the event.
Thought this is what soccer should be like in America all the time.
My name's Brad Feldman. I've been announcing Revolution games since the 2001 season. I've played every position on the field: play-by-play, color analyst, sideline, internet host, and other. Things had not ended well in 2001. Fernando Clavijo was a wonderful guy and a good soccer man, but his team was not a cohesive unit, and some of the cracks that we saw at the end of 01 turned into fissures at the beginning of the 02 season. After a bad 5-2 loss in Colorado, he was let go as head coach.
My name is Frank DeLappa, and I've covered the Revolution since day one, 1996. That year, they started out bad. It didn't look too good. Stevie Nickel had been the interim coach in '99, and he seemed to really have a good sense of what was going on. But saying that, they won, the coach bounced, so they won the first game, I think, against the Galaxy. And then they went 5-10-1 under Stevie. So they're going in there 7-14 and whatever, and the season's over. You figure they've got 21 points. There's 6 games left. They're in last place. And somehow they won 5 of their last 6 and got a draw in another one, which was important, and ended up in first place with a losing record.
Hi, I'm Glenn O'Connor. Been the massage therapist for the New England Revolution since 2002. We're in Chicago for the last game, and we ended up winning the game, made the playoffs, and then me and the trainer, Fritzy, we ended up we're on the news doing this Irish jig after we got into the playoffs. It was on the Chicago news. It was just the weirdest thing.
There was no way to know that they were going to go on this incredible 6-game unbeaten streak to end the season and then upset first Chicago and then Columbus in the playoffs to get MLS Cup.
I remember going off to college in the summer of 2002, and the Revs were in last place, sort of losing track of the team a little bit, and then all of a sudden, come September, October, they're in the playoffs after they went on a late run that season, and they're hosting the MLS Cup final. My name is Jeff Lemieux. I've worked for the New England Revolution in various roles since 2008, but in 2002, I was here at Gillette Stadium as a fan in the stands for the MLS Cup final. I don't remember exactly how the decision was made to come to the game because I was living in Ithaca, New York at the time. As a freshman in college, I was really only 2 or 3 months into college life. So I know that I wouldn't have asked my parents if I could have come home and come to that game because I didn't have a car in Ithaca, which means it had to have been my parents who suggested to me, hey, we know this would mean a lot to you to be able to go to an MLS Cup final at home for the New England Revolution. We'll come pick you up and bring you to the game and then drive you back to school after the game if you want to do that. And they did. They came up, I would have finished classes on a Friday. They came and picked me up in Ithaca, drove 7 hours to pick me up, drove 7 hours back home to the Cape. I stayed at home the night before the MLS Cup final at my parents' place where I grew up. We then woke up the next morning and drove to Foxborough to go to the game. So my parents would have driven something like, 20, 25 hours total to come pick me up, drive me home, drive back to Foxborough, drive me back to school.
It was an all-hands-on-deck scenario. Even though I was not full-time with the team, I was actually teaching at Northeastern, and I was selling group tickets at Northeastern. We were like, we're gonna bang this place out. We're gonna fill it, make it the best MLS Cup so far. When I heard that they were going north of 50, I was like, okay, there's something brewing here. The media, the legacy media, which was still dominant then, really got behind the Revs.
Yeah, before that we had no plans to really cover it. It was me and that was it, maybe. We did cover the games on the road and that sort of thing, but the columnists, nobody was freed up on the schedule to do any of that, and then all of a sudden we did it. And yeah, the Globe went big time and covered it like it should, and just 61,000 at the game. People responded to that, the interest.
Me personally, as a soccer fan, I thought it was unbelievable that we were going to get a chance to host an MLS Cup, and then to have our hometown team be in it and have all the people that showed up for that event and the buzz that just was created around the day. Because I think a lot of people, if we didn't play in that game, I don't think it would have been the event that it was, to be totally honest with you. So, my name is Chris Wheeler. I am currently a project manager with the Kraft Group here in Foxborough, Massachusetts, Gillette Stadium. I was the game day operations manager for the Revolution during MLS Cup 2002. MLS came in and basically, like the NFL would for a playoff game, came in and took over the entire stadium. So their game day operations folks were here, all their senior leadership were here. We were working in a support role to them, but my primary role, similar to my normal game day role, was to assist with making sure that both the home team and the visiting team left the locker rooms on time, on their way to get to the field, making sure the referees were ready to go, whatever they needed pre-game, during the game. That was part of my role as well. I just remember it was a beautiful day. I remember it was obviously October, so it could have been horrible weather, but it was like blue sky day, 100%, perfect temperatures.
Perfect weather. As I recall, the team was good, great crowd. Stevie Nickel had the team playing, the way he wanted them to.
Just watching all the people coming in and just slowly seeing the building fill up, and just all the media that was here. I mean, it really was, like a mini Super Bowl in a soccer sense for our facility.
There was also just sort of that really cool realization that this was what soccer meant to the people in New England, that on somewhat short notice of the Revs making an MLS Cup final, that they could get 60,000 plus people in that building to cheer them on. So that was really cool.
Yeah, totally pro-Revolution and all that. I think people were really behind the team, kept the enthusiasm up, but it was hard because it was a 0-0 game, all through regulation. So, there's a little tension, but the Revolution didn't look dangerous.
Taylor Twellman was playing on one leg. He had a knee injury. I don't know what the actual injury status was, but I bet you he was doubtful for the game. And it's never really been disclosed. I think it was like an MCL. I'm sure he took a shot to get on the field, but it was pretty clear in the first 20 minutes that he wasn't going to be a real threat like he had been all season, scoring 20-plus goals.
The Revs didn't create a ton through the 90, but once it went to extra time, you knew that didn't really matter. It was going to be one moment that was going to decide who won MLS Cup that year and whether the Revs were lifting a trophy. And the Revs at that point had just as much a chance to create that moment as the Galaxy did.
I can still remember my heart was like racing, and it was just like how you get when you're into a team, even to this day, if you go to a Revolution playoff game or something that means a lot, you still get that feeling.
We were hopeful from a biased home perspective that the Revs would pull off the upset. And Doug Lane, the legendary radio producer, and Gary Grodecki hatched a plan where I would take a wireless mic down in the field. So I sort of hybrid analyst, sideline reporter. So I sprinted down, I think I went down the stairs, not the elevator, and showed my credential to security, and I ran around the field and got behind the Revs bench, which made it even more tense.
Ralston. It's loose. Griffith settles, it's deflected off the crossbar.
It was really that close, but it was also like, here we go again, and it's not going to happen because if that shot goes in, it would have been against the run of play. The Revolution, you could say, maybe didn't really deserve it, but if that shot goes in, it changes the whole thing.
The only reason I really remember where I was sitting is because I have a vision in my head of my exact angle of watching that ball come off Winston Griffith's foot. It hits the crossbar, and I remember in that moment sort of that collective kind of like everybody gasping up a little bit, thinking at that moment that this is going to happen. This is going to end up in the back of the net, and the Revs are going to win an MLS Cup. And unfortunately, it smashes off the crossbar. It's a little deflating in that moment because you think you're going to be celebrating and then you're not. But it also gives you that little bit of hope of like, oh, we're right on the edge. It's right there. This is going to happen. But then
second overtime.
I remember where I was sitting on the bench and Winston Griffiths just hitting the ball and it looked like it was going to go in, and then it bounced, had a huge long bounce, and then I remember Aiden just laying on the ground and the thing was over, and you're like, this is brutal.
What I remember was Aiden was down on his knees for a long time, just dejected. And there are some photos of that where he's just like gutted on so many levels. And I remember this moment where Slide and Big Aiden Brown, you know, with his beard, like Slide came over and like consoled Aiden Brown. I had to laugh. I was like, I shouldn't be laughing right now.
Press box, I think you don't really know how to react because it's so sudden. And I'm kind of glad they got rid of the golden goal because it's just a weird feeling. You want to have the team at least take the kickoff, which is what happened, you know, in succeeding MLS Cups, but to the Revolution's detriment.
Yeah, I don't remember anybody else's reaction, but I just was like, that can't be that's it. Like, it's wrong.
The Galaxy score, the game ends, and then in a moment, you're up and walking out of the building because I watched the Revs lose an MLS Cup final right in front of me, got up, went and got in the car, and my parents immediately drove me 6 hours back to Ithaca to college because I had to get back for classes on Monday. So I had a lot of drives back and forth between Massachusetts and Ithaca over the course of my 4 years in college. That was definitely the most depressing drive.
Basically had to instantly bury that emotional feeling of disappointment and put my work hat back on and get back out on the field with our security team, because obviously, as you know, following those games, you get the crush of people that want to get on the field and be part of that celebration. So, you know, making sure our security folks were in place, making sure the guys that had to set up the stage on the field for the post-game trophy celebration were doing what they were supposed to be doing. So, yes, it very was much a quick switch from that fan mentality back to my work mentality to make sure that what we had to do was executed on the field.
You know, the what ifs, you know, cascade to this day. What if the crowd of 61,000 had gone home happy?
But I think there was an underlying feeling of hope to see that this team actually had gotten to the final and, you know, had overcome all these odds and overcome some of that past, you know, that was hanging over them where they just could never come close to a final or anything like that.
I was in college to be a sports journalist. I knew that's what I wanted to do, but I didn't know exactly how I wanted to get involved in sports or what I wanted to do. And it was that period, really, 02 to 06, while I was in college, that my love for the Revs was really solidified in a way that I started to think about how I could be involved with the team from a professional standpoint.
We probably picked up a lot of Revolution fans after that season just because of how exciting a season it was, regardless, as I said, of the final result. I think that New England was able to put on a good show. Gillette Stadium was able to put on a good show, and I think all the people that came that day enjoyed themselves and were able to walk away with a positive experience and be impressed by what we were able to offer.